Huge crowds take to the street of Taipei to celebrate Taiwan's national baseball team's victory.
Families that need caregivers may soon be impacted by growing labor shortages. Plus, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatens steep tariffs against America's neighbors. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Huge crowds piled in Taipei streets to celebrate Taiwan's national baseball team. After winning the country's first international championship, they were welcomed home as heroes. Our reporter Sandy Chi was there.
Baseball fans are out in force to celebrate Taiwan's heroes. They've taken to the streets of Taipei to honor Team Taiwan, who won championship at the WBSC Premier12 baseball tournament in Japan on Sunday. Many of the fans were excited to see their favorite players and cheer them on.
...2013年输给日本队啊，而且现在逆转胜，而且隔了10几年，我觉得就是台湾棒球的转捩点。
这冠军真的是对啊，超开心的，真的超开心的，超棒的。我是希望说，就是大家继续把这个气势啊，就是延续到之后的 WBC， 还有2028年的洛杉矶奥运。
台湾真的要挺中华队，他们一路走过来是很辛苦的。虽然我也是一日球迷，可是我每一场几乎都看。
The athletes also went to the presidential office after the parade. President Lai Ching-te congratulated the players, praising their victory.
恭喜 Team Taiwan 所有台湾英雄为我国赢得第一座历史上世界级的冠军，感谢你们将台湾推上世界第一，你们都是台湾之光，也因为有你们，国际社会会看见台湾，知道台湾不是只有半导体，台湾还有棒球。
With this victory, this is a new chapter for Team Taiwan to earn more top spot at international competitions. Joseph Wu, Bryn Thomas, and Sandy Chi in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A group representing families that hire caregivers for the elderly and disabled is calling for changes to Taiwan's system for hiring migrant workers. At an event in Taipei, they said high costs and hidden fees lead many employers to break the law and hire undocumented workers. Chris Goring brings us this report.
Taiwan needs to reform its system for hiring migrant caregivers for the disabled and elderly. That's the message delivered at the legislature by an organization representing families who need caregivers.
The average salary for a caregiver is $700. So we are compared like they are making here in Taiwan is 4 to 5 times more compared from what they make back home. But the problem is when they come to Taiwan, they think the salary is not good enough. Okay, but if we pay as much as the local ones, we cannot afford it. And because it's not enough, we will just find the illegal migrant workers in the black markets. For me, for example, it would be much cheaper and easier for me to hire the illegal ones. Do you want to encourage all the people in Taiwan to hire some illegal ones instead of going through the right process?
They say that families in need shouldn't have to pay a required monthly fee of about $60 while hiring migrant caregivers, which they say is a hidden tax on the disabled. And they say paying a monthly salary of about $680 per month to migrant caregivers is already a hardship for many families, leading many to hire undocumented workers illegally. Taiwan is projected to become a super-aged society next year, meaning 20% of people will be over the age of 65. And that number is only expected to increase over time, meaning more families will be looking to hire caregivers for elderly relatives. Balancing the need for caregivers with concerns about illegal immigration and Taiwan's low average salaries, this is an issue that affects families in their homes as well as their pocketbooks. Fu Hua Hong and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
To learn more about the labor issues facing migrant caregivers in Taiwan, reporter Chris Goring spoke to Kylie Lee from the Garden of Hope Foundation.
Your organization works with both documented and undocumented migrant workers, including caregivers. What are they telling you about why some of them choose to become undocumented?
From my experience and from my chatting with the migrant workers, undocumented one, they are saying that sometimes they were abused and they were overworked for several times for a long time, and nobody helped them. And even they ask the assistance from the broker. Once you are suffering for that kind of violent situation, no matter sexual abuse or harassment or physical abuse, labor abuse, for a long time you cannot stand. So finally, no one helped them. They run away.
How does the monthly pay for migrant caregivers in Taiwan compare to neighboring countries?
The salary the migrant workers, especially care workers, get in Taiwan is around $650. Comparing to some countries in Singapore and Hong Kong, a bit higher. But we'll say that in Singapore and Hong Kong, the salary, they can get better salary once they are skilled, or they can negotiate with employer. But in Taiwan, I will say that the average and the minimum amount and salaries they get is that number, always the same.
Well, the minimum wage under Taiwan's Labor Standards Act is $850 a month. So are you saying they make even less than that?
Migrant caregivers, yeah, they are paid less than best wage, minimum wage.
And their salary won't increase over time?
A bit increasing, a bit, yeah, but not meet the minimum wage in Labor Act.
And is that $680 or so enough to live on in Taiwan?
If you want to have your life in Taiwan, I think it's a bit hard and difficult, yeah. If they don't need any entertainment, no personal life, and they always work on Sundays and holidays, I think, yeah, because you're doing nothing except from work. So for that kind of workers, they can save money and send home.
That was Chris Goring speaking with Kylie Lee from the Garden of Hope Foundation. Hong Kong's top court has upheld 3 landmark rulings that grant equal housing and inheritance rights to married same-sex couples. The government's housing authority had challenged a lower court ruling which granted the rights to same-sex couples who were wedded overseas. They argued the decision would affect the rights of straight couples, but the Court of Final Appeal dismissed the government's argument, saying that differential treatment is a severe form of indirect discrimination. A U.S. Navy plane has flown through the Taiwan Strait, the first to do so since the U.S. presidential election. The Navy says it sent a P-8 surveillance plane to demonstrate Washington's commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. The last time a U.S. Navy plane flew through the strait was in September. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump says he will impose 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico as soon as he takes office. In a social media post, Trump said these tariffs would remain in place until the flow of fentanyl and illegal immigration into the U.S. stops, calling it, quote, an invasion. Trump also promised an additional 10% tariff hike on China. Canada and Mexico are the United States' largest trading partners. The most recently available data shows trade between Canada and the U.S. totaled nearly $1 trillion, while trade with Mexico was slightly lower at nearly $900 billion. For more about the proposed tariffs, Alec McDonald spoke with Nick Marrow, lead analyst at Economist Intelligence Unit.
If Trump posts 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, this will result in higher prices for American consumers. So could these tariffs ultimately backfire on him?
They could. That's kind of the main political consideration and economic consideration that we're looking at over the next couple of weeks. It's going to require the Trump team to really get comfortable with the fact that right now, as the U.S. is battling inflation, these policies are going to reignite price pressures. U.S. voters, partially voted for the economy in November. And if we see kind of the blowback from these policy moves, then there could be some consequences. The big caveat is Trump's base tends to be quite forgiving. And so if we do see any, implications of this or shocks from this, that might not happen for a couple of months, but it's going to cause a lot of anxiety, particularly in the U.S. business community, among other U.S. trade partners, in terms of the direction of travel for where U.S. trade policy is looking at going in 2025.
In July of 2020, the United States signed a trade deal with Canada and Mexico. So with respect to that deal, is there action that Canada and Mexico could take to push back against these proposed tariffs?
Yeah, well, I mean, the threats that we're seeing from Donald Trump are essentially not really based on economic considerations. They're based on immigration. They're based on allegations of drugs flowing into the U.S. And so tariff imposition is happening kind of outside of the USMCA, suggesting that, in theory, the U.S. could be in violation of these provisions. That means that we'll be looking at how Mexico and Canada are going to respond, particularly from a retaliatory perspective. I think U.S. agricultural exports are going to be the sector to watch here. But it raises a lot of uncertainty around not just kind of, what's permissible under USMCA, but what this means for USMCA.
The Chinese embassy responded to the proposed tariffs saying that nobody would win a China-US trade war. But this seems like a trade war on everybody right now. Is there anybody or any part of any supply chain which might come out ahead?
The moves that we've just seen out of, from Donald Trump are maybe the initial salvos in what looks like could be a pretty bruising trade war with the entire world. All that being said, I mean, based on where currencies go, whether we see exemptions, whether we see kind of the U.S. strike some carve-outs or negotiations with particularly key security economic partners, there could be some countries that are, less affected than others. I mean, those who we are anticipating to be the biggest losers would include China, Mexico. The next one we'll be looking at very closely is potentially Vietnam. But when we look at other countries like, Malaysia, Thailand, where, these nations haven't really been as much on Donald Trump's radar. They have benefited quite strongly from supply chain shifts over the past couple of years. And if we see their currencies depreciate against the dollar, we might see an offsetting effect on higher U.S. duties. And so those countries might actually stand to benefit from this. But this is an optimistic reading. At the end of the day, higher tariffs are going to lead to more inefficient supply chains. They're going to risk inflationary blowback.
That was Nick Merrow, lead analyst at Economist Intelligence Unit. The world's most advanced microchips are one step closer to start being made in Kaohsiung in southern Taiwan.
这个台积电的相关的这个需求，那也配合了整个这个半导体供需的这个情势，来协助台积电能够顺利的在高雄落地投资。
The world's largest chip maker, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, began moving equipment into its newly built chip fab in the city. The facility plans to begin mass-producing chips using the 2-nanometer process in 2026. Clients Apple and AMD are expected to receive the first batches of product from the fab. Coming up after the break, a former lawmaker charged with fraud has turned himself in.
My name is Stephen Rong, and my Thai name is Bashel Xu Li, and I've come to Taiwan to work as a performance artist. Join me on this journey as I discover my indigenous voice through culture and music.
Songs of Our Ancestors, every Thursday, 8:15 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
We bring you stories from Taiwan.
Every day of the week.
Our reporters travel the nation.
Exploring the issues that matter to you.
News from here in Taiwan and around the world.
What's up, Taiwan? On TaiwanPlus. Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee, we make the news. Here's what happened on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. After weeks on the run, the former boss of a company with government ties has turned himself in to prosecutors. His public stature, political past, and flight from a court date have drawn special attention to his case, as John Van Tres now reports.
24 days after he disappeared, Chen Qiyu is back to face corruption charges. He's accused of helping defraud $34 million from Taiwan Green Energy, a company with government links he chaired from 2016 to 2021. While 4 other suspects are in custody, Chen skipped the court date for his detention hearing in early November, leading to a warrant for his arrest. Amid suspicions he'd fled the country, he finally turned himself in to prosecutors in Tainan on Monday. This time, his detention is a sure thing.
犯嫌重大，且有逃亡、灭证及串供之余。 依法当庭逮捕后，向法院申请羁押禁见。
The court has agreed. But there's more to this case, an added political dimension brought on by Chen's many years in public office and Taiwan Green Energy's links to the state. Until last year, Chen was affiliated with the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, serving for some years as a lawmaker for it. And while Chen's real involvement in the case is something the court will have to decide, his political past has figures in both the ruling and opposition camps weighing in.
很多人的质疑，包括我的质疑啊，就是说陈其仪这样子的话，就是可能就到最后就是他一肩扛了嘛，哈。但是呢，他还有另外的一些钱呢，去哪里了？这都必须是不是把钱也藏好了，都交代好了，那变成他是一个人来扛。 怕说再查下去呢，衍生更多的事情出来。
躲匿了25天之后才来投案，那其实我们民进党团还是予以谴责，但我们也希望陈启玉接下来可以勇于面对司法。那当然，检方跟院方民进党团也呼吁对于这样子的状况未来如果有必要需要羁押的时候，我们也认为该押就押，该办就办。
With a major suspect in custody, the court is now faced with untangling a complex and maybe politically charged puzzle. Luffy Lee and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The government has rejected calls to allow dual citizenship for permanent foreign residents in Taiwan. The Interior Ministry said in a statement that changes to the nationality law would never be adopted, citing security and economic concerns. It comes after foreign residents and NGOs in the country launched a petition for the government to consider dropping the requirement to renounce citizenship of other countries. Taiwan's single nationality policy allows exceptions for people with significant skills or those making lasting contributions to society. Existing citizens are also free to obtain other nationalities. Taiwan has a new labor minister, and he's promising to tackle workplace bullying and misconduct.
让外界观感不佳的做法，应该要严正的检讨，有弊端该查就查，未来不该再发生，我们就不会让它再发生。
Hong Shenhan left his role as a ruling party lawmaker and took office on Monday. It comes after the former labor minister resigned over a civil servant's death linked to workplace bullying. Hong says the ministry's mismanagement of the case has been due to bureaucratic issues. A ministry investigation is ongoing. The Israeli cabinet is set to vote on a potential ceasefire deal with Hezbollah after more than 1 year of fighting. The United States has confirmed a truce is within grasp. Rosie Greninger has the latest.
Israeli strikes intensify on Lebanon's southern Beirut suburbs, despite a diplomatic breakthrough that could see a ceasefire in place within 36 hours. That's according to US State Department spokesperson John Kirby, who revealed Israel and armed group Hezbollah are on the cusp of securing a deal. The development confirmed by Israel's UN ambassador.
So we are moving forward on this front. As I said many times, our goal was very clear which is to push Hezbollah north of the Litani River. We haven't finalized it, but we are moving forward.
Fighting between Iran-backed Hezbollah and Israel erupted in October 2023 as the group stood in solidarity with Palestinians and Hamas amid Israel's war in Gaza. The US has been pushing for a diplomatic end to the conflict since it drastically escalated 2 months ago and Israeli forces began a ground offensive in Lebanon. At least 3,000 people have been killed in Israeli attacks in the country. Sources from Lebanon say US President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron, involved in negotiations, are expected to announce the truce soon. But the US State Department cautioned a deal is not set in stone.
Typically, when we say we're close, we have the caveat that nothing is final until everything is final, and that it takes the parties actually saying yes and getting there. I think you've also heard the Secretary say that oftentimes the very last stages of an agreement are the most difficult because the hardest issues are left to the end. That, of course, is true.
The Israeli cabinet is expected to meet to discuss the proposed 60-day truce and vote on a deal that includes the withdrawal of Israeli forces from southern Lebanon and an end to the Hezbollah presence in the area. The US hopes this can form the basis of a lasting ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reportedly signalled his approval, but the country's foreign minister said the agreement would hinge on UN peacekeeping forces remaining in the region to reduce the threat of Hezbollah.
לגבי לבנון, המבחן של כל הסדר יהיה אחד, לא במילים, לא בניסוחים, אלא אחד בלבד, באכיפה. בשתי הנקודות העיקריות, אחת, למנוע מהחיזבאללה לרדת דרומה מהליטני, השנייה, למנוע מהחיזבאללה לבנות מחדש את כוחו ולהתחמש מחדש בכל לבנון.
And if Hezbollah does return to southern Lebanon, Israel is insisting the deal allow them to take whatever military action they see necessary. With details still being finalized, Israel and Hezbollah are continuing their armed exchange, raising fears that one misstep could upend the talks and put an end to the diplomatic push for peace. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
At least 20 people are dead and 2 missing after torrential rains triggered deadly landslides on the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Floods ripped through villages, destroying houses and farms. Rescuers continue searching for survivors, but their efforts are being hindered by poor weather. Landslides are common during Indonesia's rainy season. They're often made worse by deforestation and illegal mining in remote areas. A surgeon and 4 accomplices have been indicted for allegedly conducting illegal organ transplants in China. Prosecutors allege the group was led by a surgeon based in Changhua County in central Taiwan. They made more than $430,000 by sending 10 Taiwanese patients to China for organ transplant surgeries since 2016, some of whom died during the procedures. The surgeon is accused of personally conducting the surgeries in China and now faces a 6-year prison sentence with up to 3 years for his accomplices. 13 women's and religious groups have formed an alliance whose goals include keeping surrogacy or paying a woman to carry someone else's child illegal. Surrogate motherhood is currently banned in Taiwan, though it tolerates citizens hiring women as surrogates abroad. It's a practice that's especially popular with single women and same-sex couples who are not eligible for IVF treatment. Some groups are pushing to reverse that ban, but this new alliance wants it to remain, saying it exploits women's bodies.
有些经济弱势上面的妇女，她们也是为了金钱的缘故，所以她们就好像出租她们的子宫，有一些商业上面的那种，我们认为这个是不妥当的。
The debate over the issue shows a split not just in ethics, but in how to solve the problem of Taiwan's birth rate, among the lowest in the world. Researchers in South Korea may have found a way to improve mobility for people in wheelchairs. Hameokan looks at how, taking inspiration from nature, they're reinventing the wheel.
By creating a shape-shifting wheel, researchers in South Korea may have improved upon one of mankind's most important early inventions. This first-of-its-kind technology can change how rigid a wheel is, making it easier for devices like wheelchairs to climb stairs and rugged paths. Researchers say that when they put their plan in motion, the goal was to move away from traditional designs.
기존의 휠 같은 경우에는 이제 평지 주행의 장점이 있기 때문에 단단한 원형을 항상 유지를 해야 됩니다. 그래서 이런 상태에서는 장애물을 넘어가는 데 이제 한계가 있었다면 저희 휠은 이제 장애물을 넘어갈 때뿐만 아니고 평지에서는 동그란 형태를 유지하고 장애물을 넘어갈 때는 말랑하게 바뀌기 때문에 기존 휠하고 가장 큰 차이점이라고 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
The inspiration for the design came after researchers studied the way that water droplets hold their shape due to the amount of surface tension they have. Using this concept, the wheels can firm up or soften depending on the obstacles or the environment.
최외곽에는 액체 분자들이 결국 안쪽으로 모아주는 힘이 커질수록 더 원형을 안정적으로 유지를 할 수 있게 됩니다. 마찬가지로 저희 휠 같은 경우에도 최외곽에 스마트 체인 블럭으로 구성이 되어 있고요. 이 스마트 체인 블럭을 안쪽으로 잡아당겨주는 힘이 커지면 커질수록 더 안정적으로 원형을 유지할 수 있게 되는 원리입니다. 그래서
Although it's still too early to tell just how effective the wheels will be in everyday life, researchers say they have a lot of potential. The plan now is to continue testing the technology before making it public, ensuring these wheels are all around the best. Devin Tsai and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, we leave you with a shot from a parade held in Taipei to honor the national baseball team for its first place win in the Premier12 championship. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.